So, good morning, world. It's time to wake up and greet the day. Every day is the first day of the rest of your life. And I don't mean that in a cliche, I mean that literally. Every day today is the first day of the rest of your life. And there is nothing like today, because today is everything. Today will be the difference between life and death, between power and whatever. Today is meaningful, because you cannot assume that you have tomorrow. You cannot assume that you have next week or even next month. Good day to you, Odd. You must assume that today is the first day of the rest of your life, okay? So I said, before you get depressed, you do have the power to strengthen your genetic bloodline, but it is painful. So I remember when I was questioning the dying and reproducing, questioning motherhood, questioning all of that. And I know it pissed a lot of people off, especially the mommy and me groups. Okay, I get it. You all think of yourself as goddesses because you're moms, and absolutely, we thank you, because without mothers, we wouldn't have an infrastructure, because mothers raise children to go into the fields that have given us this society. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with motherhood. What's wrong is the fact that we weren't allowed to realize our full potential. We were only allowed to realize certain parts of our potential. And we allowed someone to say, you can only deal with the cards that were dealt to you. You can't change your station. You can't change your genetics. You can't change anything. And so people are depressed. They're like, shit, I'm stuck in this station and class of life. And so, people go into criminal behavior, or they do other things that then rebel against society, because they didn't get the genetic opportunity to realize their full potential. Because you want to do things, but maybe your skin color, maybe your predispositions don't allow you to do it. People who are aging, who are in a very alert mind, but their body is dying, are like, shit, my mind is so alert, and my mind wants to do things my body will not allow me to do. And that's a screwed up way of life. That's a screwed up way of living. That sucks. Okay? And so there's nothing wrong with reproducing. It's the dying part that is what caused the deficit. It's what caused the reason for vaccines. The dying part caused the reasons for all of the therapeutics. But here's the thing, here's the other side of it. If we were all alive all the time and reproducing, it would be too many people. Well, obviously. And so, Mother Nature is going to say anyone that's 100% well is not going to want to procreate. Anyone that's 100% well and 100% whole is going to be more concerned with their autonomy. They're not going to be looking for a mate, looking for their better half, looking for someone to complete them, because they're the complete person. The only reason why we hang out in groups and couples and families is because we are a fraction of our potential. And so all of our friends and family, if you hang out with a bunch of friends and family, those are the people that make up for what you don't have. But you also have to deal with whatever they have that you may not want. But some people are willing to deal with the good and the bad, and sometimes the bad overtakes the good, and so what you thought was completing you was actually destroying you. But that's not for anyone else to say except for the person who's dealing with that situation. Okay? So if we were all 100% well, we all wouldn't be procreating so much, and so we would leave that up to biotech to put together a sperm from the best prototype and an egg from the best prototype, have it go through its gestation period with a mother who is 100% well, of course. There would be a very strict program on how you raise that child so that child can assimilate without being a divergent. See, that's these scientific movies are looking at trying to have a very uniform society, so you don't have somebody being the rotten apple, being the poop in the punch bowl. Okay? Because as soon as you have a divergent, whatever that is, I mean, it could be on one end where everyone's in a cured state, and then someone like me who's very evolutionary goes in and makes everybody evolve, and they don't want to evolve because they have such weak genetic lines that I would be considered a divergent. On the other side of it, everyone who's 100% well, and we're all in a cured but equilibrium state, nothing too aggressive as far as evolution to the next level. And then somebody from the outside, whoever it is, who is even more evolutionary, comes in and upsets the apple cart. Not a bad thing if it was something that was planned. But if it was somebody that was a divergent, they happened to escape in underground when the system was cleaning up the world, and they happen to have all of this DNA that's very aggressive, and they go into a homogenous society, that would also be called a divergent. Okay, so anyways, so that's the thing is that that's the other side of it, as that's the utopian side. That's probably what the New World Order is gearing towards. I mean, I was raised in a family that was working with the system. I mean, biotech and psychotherapy. I mean, and law. I mean, you can't get any more dialed into the system than that, being raised in that type of situation, and then having a suffering sink or swim bootstrap mentality, being forced on you. And I guess it made me better. It made me figure out how to give people another opportunity. They don't have to die from their genetic lines. So that's probably where the system is gearing towards. So right now, what's going on with the vaccines, the viruses, and all the therapeutics and the antibiotics, another way to look at why everyone's having an issue with the vaccines is because there is a vaccine resistance. There is an antibiotic resistance. Evolution must happen, but we have been dying and reproducing on bodies with weak genetic lines that it won't matter what kind of antibiotic you use. It won't matter what kind of vaccine you use. It won't matter what kind of therapy you use if your body is that much at a deficit, and we don't know where that cutoff is. And so it's a crapshoot when you do get exposed to a virus, a vaccine, or an antibiotic. Are you going to survive all three? Those that survive all three, you already have a strong genetic line. You'll be fine, but you'll also be deteriorating because your mindset is the fact that you don't want to evolve. That the fact that you took to a vaccine, a virus, and therapeutic means that you still have enough life in you to deal with something trying to stop your evolution, but over time that is going to not work for you. That's not going to work to your benefit. You're going to actually genetically deteriorate. And then of course people get pregnant on genetic deterioration. And so the next generation doesn't have as much of the potential because it was lost during the mother's lifespan. And the reason why the mom wanted to get pregnant is because her body sensed that there was deterioration going on and it needed to carry on the human race. And so every genetic line, every offspring has less and less of the potential. So then any therapeutic, whether it's a vaccine or any kind of virus or any kind of antibiotic, will not work. And that's why there's always a race for the cure, because antibiotic resistance, vaccine resistance is huge. We've already heard about antibiotic resistance. No one's really talked about vaccine resistance because they don't look at vaccines and antibiotics as the same thing, but they are, because the vaccines are meant to stop evolution. It means a person doesn't want to get sick. That's the whole point of it. What clued me in on this was because yesterday I was watching somebody's Facebook, and she's a huge proponent in the anti-vax world in California, and she's a huge following. And she posted something about drinking soup and acting as if her kids were sick, but they weren't. But someone was saying, get well, so-and-so. And she's like, oh no, my kids aren't sick. They refuse to get sick. And I'm like, oh wait, so this anti-vaxxer who doesn't want to get sick doesn't realize that the vaccines are supposed to not get you as sick as if you would have been exposed to the actual virus. So her point of view is to not get sick. So then why is she upset at the vaccine if that is the intention? And I realized that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the anti-vax and the pro-vax world, because they don't realize what the vaccines were for. the reason why people are getting sick because of, or getting sick despite the vaccines, or even when they thought the vaccine did it, they already had the predispositions, and just any kind of activity that is influencing their immune system is going to bring up predispositions. I mean, just like anything, it's physics. For every action, there's an equal or opposite reaction. Okay, so whether it's a virus, whether it's a vaccine, or an antibiotic, your body's going to react in some way. No telling how it's going to react, but if you already have weak genetic bloodlines, then it might be more of a reaction than you're anticipating. Okay, and so when I noticed that, then I realized that if someone is trying to stop from being sick, they don't want to evolve. So the pro-vaxxers don't want to evolve. The anti-vaxxers don't want to evolve. Anyone that tries to use all the holistic, allopathic, energy healing world to stop, demons and ward off demons, they don't want to evolve. And so everybody out there is actually on the same page, but they're fighting amongst each other over the same shit. That's the psychological operation. So I watched last night the Netflix movie, which actually is a real movie, The General's Daughter. And I watched that back in the 90s. I mean, it's a pretty intense film. And they slip in stuff to let you know how they deal with said enemy. Now, enemy can be anybody. It can be anyone that you're targeting, that you're trying to convert or trying to destroy without actually saying that you're trying to destroy them. And so the main character, the protagonist in the movie, was a victim of rape in the military. And then her dad, who was a general, covered it up and made her swear never to say anything about it. And she worked in the psychological operations. And they gave a tiny little list. I was trying to see if I can go back and remember, but the list was about fear. Fear in vaccines, fear in the viruses. When you know your target, when you know your enemy, whoever that is, when you know your target inside and out, and you know what makes them mad, what makes them happy, what makes them so fearful, you can deteriorate the enemy and cause them to destroy themselves. And so, even though we are in a great reset because of the fact that we've allowed so much dying and reproduction to happen that it has weakened the genetic bloodlines, people aren't taken to the cures. They're not easily controlled. They're glitching no matter what. You can't pull a World War II. You can't pull that again. People already know that, okay? Not saying that it's not saying that they're trying to do that and force people to do something like that. But you are being given a choice, but there's still psychological operations have to be in place so that people are feeling like they're making their own choice to do something or not do something when it really won't matter. Because if you're afraid of the virus, or even not afraid of the virus, but afraid of the vaccine, if you're afraid of anything, you're not going to survive. Any type of fear, water, air, food, vaccines, viruses, if you're in fear of any of that, your days are numbered, because you won't know how to strategically deal with that. You won't know how to arm yourself correctly, and not through violence, but arm your body correctly to handle the next evolution, this next society. It is good. And like I said about the suffering, you've got to deal with the suffering. And we've been told not to feel pain. We've been told not to suffer. We've been told that if you allow someone to suffer, you're a monster. And in reality, the suffering does build character. And again, like I said yesterday, when you constantly bail someone out, you constantly save somebody, you constantly are like the savior, the Satan, whatever it is, you're not teaching your child, much less your constituents, if you're a politician, how to be strategic, how to build character, how to know that you will survive your suffering. The fact that I had to deal with that headache, that was suffering, but I knew I could deal with it. I knew I could not just deal with it, I knew I could survive it. The energy wasn't going to cannibalize me. But when someone's 107 pounds and they're 6'10", and they have a massive headache, will they survive that headache? Possibly not. That's why they try to go and get antibiotics, because they're genetically at a deficit. Now you can blame it on the parents, whatever. But now you have the opportunity to build up your DNA, to build up your capacity to deal with the suffering so you can evolve, and nothing is going to destroy you except for something like a freak accident that is out of your control because of chain reaction events that were way out of your control. And so you have that opportunity now. It's not all for naught, but it does come at a price, which is that you got to scale down your lifestyle. You must figure out what's most important. Is food important, or is that bauble, that Birkin bag important? And you can't eat your Birkin bag. You can't eat your fast car. You can't eat, your stereo or whatever shit that people buy at nowadays, knowing that the food prices are going up, knowing that everything's going up, and they're still buying shit that they can't even eat. And so that's where the priorities must come in. And so the New World Order is figuring out how to see who has the priorities of eating versus buying stupid shit. And if you're buying stupid shit over eating, then yeah, you're not going to survive. You'll have fun making your money, but your body's deteriorating. And so what's all that money for if you're not going to be around to enjoy it? And that's the same thing with those on the JJ mentality who haven't gotten off it. And it's been 4 or 5 freaking years. Yeah, you're going to have fun being in a cured state, moving around like as if no virus exists. But the fact that you're in a cured state says that you're not evolving. Your body is going to be cannibalized by not only the J juice, because you're not really eating. And if you're eating, you're not coding, but the environment's going to cannibalize you. Everything's going to cannibalize you. Okay? Because food is coding. Food actually codes your DNA to help you level up to this viral programming. And it's very intense. I feel it. My dog feels it. I was down for a couple of days, and my dog, now I look back on the last couple of days and I realized what my dog was dealing with. The virus was running through her like, oh my God. And she had to deal with the skin inflammation. She had to deal with the zoomies. I had to deal with the zoomies in the middle of the freaking night for like an hour, going like, holy shit, sugar. And then her seizures during that time. And there's nothing I could do to stop that, because evolution must take place. The only time you can stop that is if you want to destroy something at the micro level, then eventually at the macro level. So when someone called me a monster because I'm boasting about my dog having seizures, no, actually, I'm letting you know that, yeah, you can survive the seizures. It's not that I'm boasting. I'm actually giving you an example that your dog and you can survive the symptoms of evolution, that you don't have to die from them or be afraid of them or be drugged out because you don't want to deal with them, and then eventually destroy yourself with all the drugs and the side effects and the drugs and the drugs and the drugs and the drugs. And that food is what keeps not only you intact and dealing with the environment, but also your dog. Your dog needs food as well. And they're going to go through morphine stages. They're going to go through shit and so I use the J juice topically because internally I don't want to cure her so much to where she doesn't evolve, but topically I don't want to see her scratching and itching at and biting at herself because she has to go through this shit. So I use it topically, and I use J juice topically and then coconut oil to kind of soothe her skin, and then she's fine. But she still has to go through this evolution. It's or I destroy her. Those are the only two choices in a dynamic environment. You either allow the dog and the person to live and go through the evolution, go through the symptoms and feed the symptoms and just deal with it and try to help them be comfortable during that process, or you destroy them. Those are the only two choices. And so nowadays in this dynamic environment, you only have two choices. You destroy yourself with antibiotics and all the vaccines. And I'm not saying the vaccines are poisonous, but if you're trying to mitigate evolution and evolution still wants to happen, your body's at a deficit, it's not going to matter what you do, because your body has to level up to this environment. And taking any therapeutic, it's not going to matter if you're that much at a deficit and the body is dying to live. And so that's why all the viruses, a person surviving the viruses, the vaccines, and the therapeutics or the antibiotics is a crapshoot, because you don't know how much of a deficit you are until you deal with this virus. Okay? And so when someone survives the virus because they had a vaccine, they could say the virus saved their life, but now they're at a deficit. It doesn't even matter. Would they survive the virus if they got exposed to it? Potentially, potentially not. We don't know. But now they're at a deficit. See, that's the thing. So just because you survived the virus and the vaccine, that's great. You're still alive, but now you're at a deficit. Your lifespan has been cut short. If you plan to have a baby, that baby is going to be at a deficit as well. And so then now you're even more behind the eight ball. No matter what, you're behind the eight ball. And so this is what the system is trying to eradicate, is now so many people who are at a deficit procreating people who are not up to par, because we finally have exhausted the talents of the petri dish. And so these great resets have probably happened for eons. Why they had the Great Flood, why Atlantis was around, why the fall of the Roman Empire, why the rise and fall of the dynasties, because the petri dishes over those periods of time, thousands and thousands of years, have exhausted themselves because everyone kept dying and reproducing. And so the gods, those that know more, who understand what creates life and what promotes life and what causes death, they go and just clean the slate. Leave a few people around as prototypes, because you don't want to start over again, because that doesn't make sense. And so you leave the strong around to then use more as prototypes, to then advance humans even more so. And so that's what's been going on for centuries, for eons, for thousands and thousands of years, ever since Sumer. Now, we're going through it again. This isn't the last time. It's going to happen again, but at least now a few of us know. And maybe we can impress upon the powers that be that, yes, we will have a divide in our society, because I can't even imagine 500 million people knowing, like every single person of 500 million knowing about JJ mentality. Maybe, maybe not. I know 7 billion doesn't know about JJ mentality at all. Only like probably less than 1%, a fraction of 1%, even less than that. And so at some point, maybe down the road, when they have gone through 6.5 billion people, or we have enough control over our society to figure out who are the divergents, who are the ones, the rabble rousers are going to destroy society at the micro and the macro level. Once they figure out who they are and people are being balanced, then they can start looking at how we're going to maintain the population and deal with having to evolve and set people up correctly. Salt isn't bad, food isn't bad, air isn't bad, water isn't bad. And then we'll have a new society, and how they would spin it of why they didn't know this before, hell, I don't know. But at least now we have a model to work from. Before it was like, oh, we want this pie in the sky utopian society, but how the hell we're going to get there, we don't know. This is just a dream. But now we have a reality that we can attach an actual model of what it takes to be evolved and stay evolved. And when you want to have a baby, the baby won't be at so much of a deficit, but they still have to go through the pain of evolution. And that's not fun. It takes a strong parent to say no to a kid. It takes a strong parent not to spoil a kid. I was in a very adult-centered household. It wasn't a child-centered household. We didn't have toys all over the place in the living room and the dining room. I mean, we had a dining room that had glass, had a crystal ball, it had overhanging lamp and a pit, which a conversation pit, and a fireplace, and an Art Deco couch and a dining room table. Then you go into the kitchen. It was the kitchen table, the kitchen table, and then the kitchen, and then there's a family room with the TV and the couch, and right behind the couch then was the atrium where the front door was, and it was like a marble front atrium. And then you go down the hall, and there was a first bedroom. And so our bedrooms had toys, but in the toy box. We couldn't have toys all over our room. We had to clean up our room. We had to make our bed. We had chores. I mean, it was definitely, it wasn't like other households that I've been in. Okay? I mean, we were held responsible and held accountable ever since day fucking one. And I resisted all of it. Okay? And so that's not easy. And then when you take on like someone like me that was at a deficit, I might have went through hell. I'm sure she put me through hell. I'm sure I put her through hell. I wasn't easy, but I was also resisting a programming because I was more creative. I didn't want to be in it, but I had to learn things. That's the thing, is that imparting upon your child, they have to learn how to be responsible. That is the most difficult. And so raising a kid in this society, raising a kid at all, raising a kid that's going to be responsible, it's not going to fuck up, it's not going to go and destroy society as it grows older, that's going to be difficult. That is going to be difficult. And so at some point, the New World Order says, okay, if we're going to do that, if it's going to be that difficult raising a kid in society where society has to deal with people who are bringing in people in this world that are not getting it, then we're going to have to cut down the population. Because you have too many people out of control, then you have chaos. Where's the order? Where's the growth? Where's the advancement when you're always dealing with somebody who's at a deficit? Okay? And so you have to understand the Georgia Guidestones for what it is. And then you be the one to survive. And you have now the tools to survive this, the tools to strengthen your bloodline, to strengthen your genetic line. It doesn't come without a price, and you have to prioritize. And if it's all about money and status and distraction, then that's fine. It'll be a short life for you, because this virus is going to run through you, and all of your friends and family mutate. The virus is going to run through you, and people's lives are going to be cut short, and so will their kids' lives, because the kids are also at a deficit. Okay? And so some kids already came into this world at a very weak genetic line, and they won't be able to handle the virus or the environment. And so at some point, you as a parent and you as a person are going to have to figure out what's important, to survive this or just do whatever it is that you do and pretend nothing changed. Okay? So in the future, only like the New World Order, I'm sure, is going to make the children, or figure out who is responsible enough to have a baby. And I actually understand that. I get it. I think a couple of years ago, I was against it, because I'm like, oh, all life is precious. But then what is all life? Oh, wait, here, cancer's life, but is that precious? And so then you realize that you can't be a hypocrite. If all life is precious, then cancer would be precious. Grandma would be precious. You wouldn't let grandma die. And so you have to realize that it's about balance. Too much life is cancer. Too much death is extinction. You got to balance out the two. But how do you do it in a dignified way? How do you do it where it doesn't look like World War II? That's the job of the New World Order. That's the job of the gods that started us with their bloodlines. That's the job of those that are running our infrastructure. And I don't care if they're like Tesla or Bezos and are so rich, I could give a crap. Okay, if they can keep order in our society, and I can still go to the grocery store and drive down the road with stoplights, and I have a sanitation department, and I have, garbage department, and I have electricity, I don't care how rich those are out there. As long as I can maintain my lifestyle and I have access to resources and the ability to earn my way into this world, I'm fine with whoever. I could care less. I don't need to be so freaking rich, because those that are very rich have a lot of responsibility to keep being rich and to keep the infrastructure and to keep things going so they can still stay around, because they still need the people. The kings and queens still need the people. And the people still need somebody to keep order in society, because I can't tell my neighbor to go do this. There must be a balancing force. There must be an enforcement somewhere. So anyways, yeah, this will be part of my book too. Jeez. Oh, all this evolution is just like, it just is nonstop. You don't realize, when I'm thinking about this 24/7, it's nonstop. Until I get this on paper, it's nonstop. So I'm going to go, but I wanted to make sure that you guys understood that your genetic bloodline is going to determine if you survive the viruses, the vaccines, and the antibiotics and therapeutics. Your genetic bloodline. And then now you have the choice to strengthen it. Those are at a major deficit have a longer road than those that are not at a major deficit. Obviously, that's just physics. Okay? And then if you know you have a long road ahead of you, you better set your life up accordingly. All right, bye.